Hello and welcome to the Hoof GP. 2 weeks ago we saw cow 566 and she was literally throwing her head up and down in a bobbing action, trying to counterbalance the weight that was going through this back right foot because it was causing her so much pain and she didn't want to put any weight on it. Well, that was then and this is now. And we're back on the farm to see how cow 566 foot is looking now and whether or not we've managed to stop her bobbing her head up and down.
Today you're joining us on a rather windswept but gorgeous day here in sunny southwest Scotland. We're routine trimming the feet of these dairy cross Jersey cattle when all of a sudden the very familiar face of cow 566 greets us.
So here is 2 weeks ago and how cow 566 story began.
She was throwing her head in the air with every step she made and not wanting to even put that back foot on the ground. Once we got her up the race and into our beautiful green goddess of a crush, we could easily see the problem. The entire white line portion around the coronet of her foot was literally peeling away, so we washed it off and set about it with our grinder. You can see the outer claw was much larger than the inner claw, and this would partly lead to a problem like this. After grabbing our razor sharp curved hoof trimming knife, the problem became exceedingly obvious. There was fluid bubbling out the side wall of her foot. I didn't realise at the time, but I actually tracked down the entire portion of her sole, and I found myself removing a huge amount of hoof horn. But I'm glad I did, because the pressure build-up underneath those layers of hoof horn must have been immense. When we'd finished, it was anything but a neat trim. We doused the entire foot with iodine and salicylic acid, hoping that we would dry out those external layers of hoof horn and that new fresh hoof horn could form underneath. When she left the crush, she was anything but a catwalk model. She was still bobbing her head in an effort to avoid putting weight through that painful back right foot, and still very clearly lame.
But here we are back in present day and our foot is nice and clean. The block is still in place, which is fantastic. And actually, her foot's looking pretty good. So her main problem was up here and I very nearly missed it. She also had a bit of an issue down here and the whole thing was actually pretty open. Right now, it doesn't look very beautiful at all. But it does look much more functional than it was the last time we saw her. All we're going to do now is reduce the higher parts of her foot and reduce some of that hoof horn that's grown over the last 2 or 3 weeks. It should have grown about 3.5 to 4 millimeters, by the way. And then we're going to take a look at the problem and how it is healing. So rather unorthodoxly, I start by using the edge of the grinding wheel to reduce that inner portion of higher hoof horn before moving on to the outer wall horn and the axial wall and toe of this cow's foot. I want to reduce the entire size because the block she's got on is still in very good shape and condition, and I'm trying to return this outer foot back to the constraints and proportions that it really should be. Right, starting to look pretty good actually. So I'm not sure how, so that's still quite soft, it's not proper hoof horn. I'll just scratch back the outer layers of it to see. Yeah, see, it's sort of peeling. We don't really want that. We want just nice, hard, firm hoof horn. So we'll get rid of that little bit, and there's a little bit more up here. This is exactly what iodine is supposed to do. Dehydrate those outer layers, forming that protective barrier, and that protective barrier is obviously completely dehydrated, so it's no use and it flakes away eventually. And underneath should be, and it actually in this case is, good fresh hoof horn. Just gently peel this back. I wonder if we've managed to stop the bobbing. It'll be really interesting to see how she's walking. I didn't realise she was in this lot of cows until she was literally right behind the crush. So again, just peeling away those little layers of dehydrated hoof horn that want to flake away to reveal what is underneath. And hopefully remove no more than we need to. So I think this is still slightly open. Just going to work around the edges. Code brown. which is called thinning the margins. This bit here is the bit that would be most problematic, because where the junction where this outer wall horn meets the inner hoof horn is called the white line, and it is really, really susceptible to damage. So we need to make sure this bit is definitely healing up. You can actually see those little cracks just in there, and those are the ones that cause the real issues, because they just keep following that naturally occurring easy bit to follow. Basically, the junction where the wall horn meets the inside is called the white line, and it's really soft, and it's much easier. It cracks much easier than it normally would in any other part of the foot.
It's like a piece of wood, it follows the grain. Like, it's easier to chop if you follow the grain.
Why are you always turning it back to wood? Seriously? He actually does make a really good point. It's exactly like a piece of wood following the grain. I'm sure I gave him a compliment earlier on though, and I don't want to make a habit of it. May seem pointless taking these tiny little slithers off, but I guarantee you it is not. It is so close to being healed. It really, really, really is. Just model it out a little bit more actually. Oh, actually that's still cracking. I did not think there was a cracked layer there, but there you have it, there is. It's cracking right up this inner wall. Doesn't look like it's open, so it is still healing. We certainly don't want that crack to keep going. Close to getting it all out. Come on, get it all out. Lovely. It just looks so bitty, doesn't it? Okay, but no. Lovely. So here is how it was looking 2 weeks ago. Open up here at the coronet, the hairline, the junction between her skin and her hoof horn, and causing a real problem, which was leading to that bobbing of the head. And here is what it's looking like today. Gone is that open red rawness, and in its place is new, freshly formed, healthy hoof horn. Right, as I often say, the proof of the pudding or the healing is in the walking. So let's see if we've managed to cure that bobbing or not. This is going to be as much of a revelation for me as it is for you, because I haven't seen her walking yet. See how she's walking with full strides now, and her head isn't being thrown up and down like before. I would sing happy days, but my voice isn't very good and you might all unsubscribe. Speaking of which, if you've made it this far, you probably should think about subscribing. So there we have it, a cow that was very lame 2 weeks ago, throwing her head up in the air to alleviate some of the pain and pressure on that back foot. And in just 2 short weeks, she's pretty much fully healed. That's what I call a result.